funding of $14,000 from the Water Fund CIP account due to deferral of other projects.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. A3.2, approval of engineering services agreement with Baxter and Woodman for water treatment plant master flow meter and chemical feed improvements, authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for those engineering services with Baxter and Woodman in an amount not to exceed $95,900 with funding from our water fund capital improvement account and a proposed fiscal year 2013 allocation of $50,000 for engineering services.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Item A4, Resolution 67R12, authorizing the city manager to sign notifications of grant awards to fund a senior meal congregate program, to operate the senior meal congregate program at the Levy Senior Center and Fleetwood Jourdain Community Center.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item A4.1, approval of contract renewal with Catholic Charities Lunch and More for that senior meal food program. Authorizing the city manager to renew the contract with Catholic Charities Lunch and More to provide the senior meal congregate program at the Levy Center and Fleetwood Jourdain Community Center from October 1st, 2012 through the end of September 2013 in the not-to-exceed amount of $4.27 per lunch meal. Total meal program contract value is projected at $43,456 with funding from our general fund accounts within Fleetwood Jourdain and Levy.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A5, Resolution 68R12, an assignment of a sublease of real property at Green Bay Road and Central Street by Top of the Tracks Incorporated Coffee Shop to SEG Cafe, LLC, authorizing the city manager to sign this sublease agreement.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I'll be sorry to see Mary Lou Smith, who's run Top of the Tracks for these 27 years, retire. The happiest morning face you'll ever know. A6, we have one resident who wants to speak on A6. Let me introduce it. Ordinance 99012 relating to bicycle use in alleys. Staff is recommending consideration of 99012 to amend portions of the city code as amended relating to bicycles and the use of bicycles within the city. Is there a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Ms. Breyer, welcome. Join us at the podium.
My name is Gladys Breyer. I live at 550 Sheridan Square in Evanston. I'm a member of Citizens Greener Evanston, and both Citizens Greener Evanston and the Transportation Committee of Greener Evanston and the new organization of Walk and Roll are beginning to work on a project that would continue to encourage more biking in Evanston. And one of the ways, and that of course is for a whole series of things, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions being the most important. But one of the things, the program that we are working on, is to designate certain alleys in Evanston, north and south alleys, that would be bicycle alleys. Now, so it's interesting that you are trying to sort of eliminate activity of sorts in alleys, but our proposal, which we are just beginning to work on, is that certain alleys be designated in north-south routes. As we work to reduce greenhouse gases, we want to reduce car driving. And over the near future, that will become a major effort all over the place because there's too many gases going into the air. So by doing this, we will begin to plan how people can move from place to place in Evanston on alleys which are provided for bicycles, because if you increase the number of bicycles specifically and in great amount on the normal streets, they will be intruding on cars, and there will be more accidents. So to avoid to avoid more accidents and to encourage more bicycles, we are looking to the alleys. We understand this is not a project that can be achieved immediately, but the city should understand that there will be a significant reduction in greenhouse gases if we move people from cars to bicycles and we provide safe and available alleys for them to use. These bikes will avoid potential accidents on the streets, which will inevitably come if you continue what we're currently doing. I think that's really it. We hope that whatever you're doing tonight, doesn't give makes you not think about alleys in the future, because alleys are going to be part of the future protection for the greenhouse gases in Evanston.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Breyer.
Thank you.
Alderman Burris?
Can we hear from staff about this? Thank you, Mr. Farrar.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Grant for our Corporation Council. Staff is submitting this proposed ordinance for your consideration. Really, it is based upon a prudent risk management approach. As you're aware, the Law Department has been working with the operational departments in the city in ways to reduce potential liability, given the fact that there are certain lawsuits that are commonly encountered by the Law Department in the course of our defense of the city in litigation. One of the issues that we've come across in the last 3 years while I've been Corporation Counsel is the issue relative to alley use by both pedestrians, bicyclists. In terms of the state of the law, there's a specific statute, the Illinois Tort Immunity Act, which speaks to immunities and liabilities under state law and how that affects municipal liability. With respect to alleys, there is a body of case law that establishes that no municipality can be held liable due to pedestrians or bicyclists using an alley for certain uses. And what we've tried to do is in conjunction with the state of the case law and our understanding of the traffic engineering role that has existed for many years, is to clarify that bicyclists can use alleys. They're still permitted users, but under the law they are not intended and permitted users. And why that distinction is so important is given the fact that there's approximately 70 miles of alleys in Evanston. If a bicyclist is considered in a court to be a intended and permitted user, then that in theory would subject the city to maintenance of alleys for that traffic. So you're talking about 70 miles of alleys that conceivably the city would be required by a court to maintain. And that is an issue that the Law Department, in doing its due diligence on this matter, has attempted to craft the suggested language, and I am happy to answer whatever questions you may have.
Alderman Rainey?
Would you consider this housekeeping?
No.
No.
No. It's a little bit more than housekeeping.
A little more definitive.
Every time that we try to conform the city's ordinances to the current state of case law, that requires a fair amount of research analysis working with the affected departments.
But to the Green Evanston, Walk and Roll Evanston people, this is not restricting the use of alleys for bicycling.
As the ordinance makes clear, and that's the specific language that we drafted, bicyclists can use alleys if they wish, and they will not be cited for violations. However, under the specific statutes and under certain cases, they would not consider to be intended users of alleys such that the city would have the obligation to maintain alleys.
What about sidewalks? Are sidewalks intended for use by bicyclists?
That is a very interesting question, Alderman Rainey, and there's a lot of cases that speak to it, and I would probably spend more time than the agenda permits answering that.
I want to relieve you of any extra work. I have been asking for at least a year to have the international symbol of no bicycles stenciled on Howard Street sidewalks. There is a beautiful bicycle lane running down Howard Street, but there are at least 2 bicyclists riding on the sidewalk every block all day long. And what does it take to get that? I'm certain that that would help us, relieve ourselves of any liability for a bicyclist falling off his bicycle where the bricks and the sidewalk don't meet. We have a sign up that says, "No bicycle riding on Howard Street." There's a sign, just like a parking sign. But we cannot get the sign on the sidewalk.
I can look into that matter, Alderman Rainey, and revert back to you with action and details.
That's all I want.
Alderman Holmes?
Alderman Rainey, as beautiful as Church Street is now with its beautiful green bicycle paths, I've been telling Director Robinson that people still continue to ride in the street and on the sidewalk. And I don't know what we do to make that stop. But yesterday, when the mayor and Alderman Brathwaite and I were out walking on Church and Florence, and there was someone coming right down the middle of Church Street. I mean, riding. And, of course, Alderman Brathwaite yelled, "Don't you see the bicycle path?" And so they immediately got over. But I don't know what it is that, that we can do to make people understand that you have a bicycle path right there. And the Church Street one is very, very, very visible. It not only has the bright, bright green, but it also has the little dividers and everything. It's very protected. Yeah. And still, people don't use it. So I don't know what else we can do.
I think the symbols on the sidewalk are a good boost to reminding them, because they're riding.
Well, it sounds to me as if this ordinance, which is a good effort at risk management, won't undermine the efforts of Walk and Roll and Citizens Greener Evanston to improve our bike facilities and bike routes and so forth. And so, it being moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Farrar. A7 is ordinance 100-0-12, decreasing the number of Class C liquor licenses due to the closure of Hoda Restaurant at 2545 Prairie Avenue.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. With regret. A8 is ordinance 101-012, increasing the number of Class N liquor licenses for issuance to Whole Foods at 1111 Chicago Avenue. Approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. A9 is ordinance 102-0-12, decreasing the number of Class O liquor licenses for Class N issuance to Whole Foods at 1111 Chicago Avenue.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A10, ordinance 103-0-12, increasing the number of Class O liquor licenses for issuance to Trader Joe's at 1211 Chicago Avenue.
Approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A11, which is an ordinance for liquor license to 7-Eleven on Emerson, has been asked to be held for two meetings, to our meeting on October 22nd. Alderman Rainey?
Yes, could I speak to something regarding that? I really think this is an issue where the matter of the license should be divided. The matter of the ordinance needs to be divided from amending the ordinance to include a license. I was very surprised to see this bunched or bundled, because first of all, we have to debate the reasonableness of the ordinance and then decide whether or not we want to issue a license. And so that is how I would like to see this come back. I don't know who has removed this from the agenda, but I think it was very timely, and I'm glad that that happened. This is a citywide issue where we could be in a position of receiving applications from every gas station that has a convenience store, every convenience store in town, which are some of our most problematic locations. I realize that liquor licenses are a privilege, not a right, but I think that we're really treading into very, very scary territory with this one.
So let's ask for this to be returned to committee from one item to two, bifurcated into the the creation of a new liquor license
Yes,
classification, and then the question of issuance to this particular applicant.
Right, but I think we definitely need some kind of a citywide public hearing notice that we're doing this, because this just has so many implications that I would just like everybody who wants to weigh in on this.
All right, so the matter is held until October 22nd. Thank
Well,
you.
is it held or removed from the agenda in this form?
The request to me was to hold it.
Well, I hope it doesn't come back like this, because
To come back is two items. Mr. Farrar?
Chairman Grover, members of the committee, again, Grant for our Corporation Council. Relative to Alderman Rainey's request, what we can do indeed is bifurcate it. We will split it out into two separate ordinances that will come back for October 22nd.
thank you.
Given the input that we've received. Staff will handle that accordingly.
Thank you. Moving on to A12, Ordinance 105.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
Madam
ma'am.
Chair, I believe the applicant is here, and we might want to explain that what it means, what we just did. The applicant is here. You
Yes.
are- Yeah.
So, gentlemen, what this means is that there will be two matters heard on October 22nd. One is the creation of a new liquor license, creating the new liquor license of an O1 classification. The second item will be consideration of issuance of that new liquor license to the 7-Eleven at 817 Emerson. So if you can wait a month, or essentially 4 weeks, that's when it will come up again on both of those two separate items. So please come back and join us then. Thank you. A12 is Ordinance 105-012, increasing the number of Class T liquor licenses, permitting issuance to Smiley Brothers Restaurant and Brewery at 1615 Oak Avenue. This would create actually our first Class T liquor license issuance.
Move approval.
Alderman Rainey?
Madam Chair, can you remind us if we created this ordinance previously?
I can't remind you because I don't know. I'm assuming because it doesn't ask us to do it here. Mr. Farrar again. This existed, didn't it?
Yes, I believe that the license was created sometime in 2001, 2002, if I'm correct, and it was not filled for as long as we could determine.
It was a very hopeful new liquor license in
And hope springs
2001.
eternal. Here you
And
go.
here we've come to realize our hopes and dreams
We
with.
knew we could do it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And lastly is an item for discussion, APW 1, Proposed Ordinance 76012, amending our city code, Title 4, Chapter 6, relating to the plumbing code and subsoil drain pipe. Mr. Stoneback is here to discuss with us.
Madam Chair, committee members, Dave Stoneback, Utilities Director. We're here tonight to talk about a proposed ordinance. We want to explain our reasoning for the proposed modifications, respond to your questions and concerns, and then obtain your feedback. The proposed ordinance would modify when a sump pump could connect to the sewer system. It would only deal with new sump pumps. It would still allow sump pumps to connect to the storm sewer system where available, but otherwise they would have to discharge to grade. We're unaware of any current problems caused by sump pumps, but we want to make sure that there isn't an issue in the future. This map indicates the locations of where existing storm sewers are. To connect to a storm sewer would still require an applicant to run a second pipeline out to the street. Their current pipeline would be that serves their home and disposes of their sanitary waste would go to the combined sewer, but if they want to connect to the storm sewer, they would have to run a pipeline out and connect to the storm sewer, which would involve a second pipeline. The reasoning that we're asking for this modification are four reasons listed up above, and our main one is to help prevent sewage backups from occurring during rain events. I'll be explaining each one of these suggestions as we move along.
Is this a good moment to pause for a question? Alderman Rainey?
I'm just curious, what would it cost to, so, let me back up. Those of us that have sump pumps that are connected to something, I don't even know what, where does it go now?
If you have an existing sump pump and it's not splashing out onto your lawn, then it is going into your sewer service and discharging to the combined sewer system.
All right. That would be out the yard to the street, right?
To the
'Cause I
street,
know that's where
and
I-
the majority of our combined sewers are in the center of the street, so you're
Right,
going
okay,
to the
so-
center of the street.
So for new people who are going to not have it flowing onto their yard, right? I mean, that's the alternative,
We would highly recommend that they discharge to their yard.
into their yard.
If there was damage caused, structural damage caused, then we would, if there's a storm sewer there, we would highly recommend that they connect to the storm sewer. And then lastly, if they could ask for a variance from the city
Variance, okay.
manager.
That would be the variance, going to the
Correct.
street. Okay. And that would be the city manager or his designee?
Or is designated, that's correct.
Alderman Holmes?
So, Mr. Stoneback, Director Stoneback, so this applies then only to new sump pumps? Am I hearing you correctly?
That is the intent for new sump pumps. Again, we're unaware of any problems currently being created by sump pumps discharging to the combined sewer. We relieved the damage caused by sewage backup by implementing the long-range sewer program. And now I'm concerned that because people don't have these basement backups occurring, they feel that there's adequate room in the combined sewer to connect sump pumps to them. If they're already there, they aren't causing a problem. What I don't want is in the future additional sumps being connected that might cause a problem. And if I get through the slide presentation, I think that you'll see why I'm suggesting that.
Okay, but I hear you, and I want you to get through it, but I want to understand so I can
It is
explain
only
it to
for
my resident.
new.
So only new. So
Only.
therefore, if my sump pump goes out and I replace it, then what does that mean?
You replace it.
In the
It
same
is
way
my
that it's
understanding
now.
you would not have to get a permit to do that work. You would hire a plumber, you would place a sump pump, and it would discharge to where it's currently discharging.
Right.
If you did a new home or major renovation,
Right.
and you were installing a new basement, then the building permit would indicate that you're putting in a sump pump. There is no separate permit for sump pumps. There's a building permit, and when you submit your building permit, the plan examiner reviews it, sees that you're putting in a sump pump, maybe a second sump pump, but a new one. That new one would be what would fall under this ordinance.
Okay.
All right. Please continue. Thank you.
So as indicated, the relief sewer program was very successful in reducing basement backups, and that was taking the surface runoff, the stormwater that flows into the drainage structures on the street, and we eliminate that. Sump pumps that are connected directly to the combined sewer, which are the majority of the existing ones, still have the potential to cause a sewage backup. In Evanston, 63% of our combined sewer system is constructed a 12-inch or smaller diameter pipe. For Evanston, a very liberal slope of 4%, which means that you have 5 inches of drop in 100 feet, which most of our sewers are a lot flatter than that. And the capacity of a 12-inch sewer is approximately 744 gallons per minute. The typical sump pump capacity is 40 gallons per minute. And figuring that if 18 sump pumps kicked on at one time, that's right up there to that 744 gallons per minute, which could overwhelm a 12-inch or smaller diameter pipe. As such, even though it's a combined sewer because we take stormwater into it, it's really more appropriate to think of our combined sewer system as a sanitary sewer system. And in the engineering world, if you have a pure sanitary sewer system, you generally prohibit sump pumps discharges to it because of that very fact that you can so easily overwhelm the sewer. I've made sections of 3 different areas of town to demonstrate what the potential is. This is in Center Evanston. This is Emerson Street up here at the top, and there's a large diameter 60-inch sewer on Emerson Street. But on Brown, Hovland, and Gray, each one of these areas, in this area right here on Brown, there's approximately 45 to 50 homes. If 18 of those homes have sump pumps that kick on at the same time, that sewer on Brown is subject to surcharge. Brown is one of the few streets in this area where all the street drainage structures are connected to the relief sewer. So it would be just the sump pumps that do that in the normal sewage waste. On Hoveland Court, again, there's about 40 to 45 homes, but you can see that there's still drainage structures that collect stormwater from the street and discharge into that same sewer. It's at a slower rate because we put a restrictor in it, but you still have stormwater entering it, and then if you have sump pumps kicking off and going into it, you could potentially cause a problem. And then the same thing on Gray. This is an area up in the very northwest part of town. The north is Isabella Street. This is Thayer Street, I believe. Hartzell. And then you have Grosse Point Road to the west. So there's approximately 200 homes in this area bordered here that all discharge into sewer pipes that are 12-inch or smaller in diameter. They outlet on Thayer Street here into a larger sewer, but all this sewer flows up to this point and then discharges out this way. So there's 200 homes. If 18 sump pumps kick on at one time within that area, there's a good possibility that there's going to be a basement backup created. And then one last area that I wanted to show is in south central Evanston between Asbury and Ridge. So Asbury's over here, this is Ridge, and it's Mulford Street, and Oakton is up above here, so it's just south of there. There's approximately 150 homes in this area that, again, are all served by 12-inch or smaller diameter sewer pipes. All the street drains are connected to the combined sewer in this area. You can see the A and the Bs are indicating drainage structures, street drainage structures. So again, just the capacity of the sewer is very limited due to its size, and we don't want issues to start arising from this. Years ago, the City Council passed the ordinance to not allow downspouts in residential areas to connect to the combined sewer. This is the same type of effort that we're trying to get across at this point in time for new sump pumps. So another thing that the proposed ordinance would do is be more consistent with the city's current policy. And the ordinance reads that you're allowed to connect to the storm sewer or combined sewer and not to the sanitary sewer. Well, the plan examiner in community and economic development is well aware that our combined sewer acts more as a sanitary sewer than a combined sewer, and so he's been using that clause, not to sanitary sewers, for at least the past 10 plus years, and maybe even longer. So new homes that were built and new additions that were built and have a sump pump during the building permit plan review, they would have to indicate that their sump pump was going to discharge to grade. So that's another reason to try to get this ordinance passed. Another reason is just environmentally friendly. We're taking some guesses here, but assuming a 1 hour rain event and the sump pump kicks on for 30 minutes, cycles on and off half the time during a rain event, and it's a 40 gallon per minute pump, for every 1,000 sump pumps that kick on, it generates 1.2 million gallons of water that goes to the sewer, that has to go to the sewage treatment plant. And then all that water has to be treated. And that takes up a lot of energy just to treat that water, let alone the energy to run the sump pump. But you would still have a sump pump, it would just discharge to your grade. The last reason that we're asking for this ordinance is that there is already a committee of people from Community Economic Development, Public Works, and the Utilities Department that entertain concerns from residents that have a flooding issue in their backyard. And we don't have a clear guidance as to when we should grant the exception and allow them to connect. And so this would help us define the clear definition of what was needed. And that is that there is specific damage that's being caused to the foundation. I'll have to admit that somebody says I can't use my backyard for 2 days because there's water in the back of it. that to me, that is not reason to grant a variance because the water will drain away. There's other options after the rain takes place. If you want to try to pump it out, then nobody's going to say you can't. But to have that flow go right into the sewer during the rain event would cause the potential of doing it. And I know it's a nuisance to people if they can't use their backyard for those 2 days and other things, but there's other ways of managing that as well, grading your backyard to a lower area so it's only in one area that's being disturbed. We've reviewed cases where it's been the entire backyard that's been disturbed, and that's the type of case where it's causing damage to foundation that we have granted the variances in the past and allowed them to connect to the combined sewer. So again, we're proposing this ordinance. We do want to hear your questions and concerns, and we want to incorporate your suggestions into the ordinance before we would come back and introduce it. So with that, I'd be willing to take questions, concerns, or recommendations to modify the ordinance.
Alderman Holmes?
Well, I can just imagine my phone and people asking me, so what does this have to do with all of the sewer fees that we've been paying and all of the sewers that we're supposed to have taken care of all these problems that folk have been going through for years? Question comes up almost every month in terms of when is the fee going to stop and what is it going to do? So now I'm wondering if we're going to have, if, I understand it's new sewers, but I understood the downspout when we had to disconnect that and have that water go into your yard. But then now if you're talking about the even if you do a renovation in your home and you may have to have the sewage going into your yard, the closeness, I'm thinking about the health issue of it. I mean, what happens with all of that? And I know people are going to call and ask, so I want to be able to give them, or either I'll just refer them to you, but.
Okay. Well, first of all, again, it's not just doing any house modification. It's a modification in which you are expanding your basement and you are putting in a new sump pit and sump pump. And if you do that, then this is when it would come in to play. Yes, I understand that our sewer service charge is very high, especially compared to our very low water rate. But I think everybody in Evanston has to admit that they did get a benefit from that program because we don't have sewage water going into people's basement on rain events. And I was here back in the 80s, and I know every rain event, somebody had water in their basement. Absolutely. And during large rain events, they all had water in their basement. So that is what we resolved by doing that. But that was the installation of new pipelines, larger pipelines to convey stormwater. They aren't specifically storm sewers because all the sewage that goes into the relief sewer system still goes to the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District and needs to be treated. So if one of the desires of the City Council is to not take the environmental aspect of it, we could allow sump pump discharges to the relief sewer system. That would prevent basement backups because there's no basements connected directly to the combined sewer system, or I'm sorry, to the relief sewer system. But then that flow would still have to be treated at a sewage treatment plant, which then takes away from the environmental benefit of getting the sump pump water out onto the lawns.
Alderman Rainey?
Well, I think I saw where 10 or 14 new single-family homes are built a year, so it would apply to them. So that's
right. I believe the memo said 5 to 10, and that was a rough estimate provided by the plan reviewer.
Hopefully 14 or 20. But,
somewhere in there, yes.
So it'll apply to them. Anybody who, why don't we figure out a way, a formula to determine whether a renovation would result in this? And I would think only a renovation that included a sump pump that wasn't there before.
And that is the intent. It has to be a new sump pump.
But you said a substantial renovation.
Then I'm sorry, it was my poor wording.
Because
it would only
people
be
add
involved
second stories on, they, double the size of their house. So if they already have a sump pump, they shouldn't have to disconnect and do.
I agree. I misstated that it would only affect when they were planning to install a brand-new sump pump at a location that was not, where there was none previously.
Do multifamily buildings have sump pumps? Big projects?
Yes, they do.
They do. So what about those that are being built right now? Some of them are huge, the projects.
I'm going to take Amley on
Okay,
Chicago
take that.
Avenue.
Are they automatically doing what we're asking?
They have to provide stormwater detention.
Okay. Oh, right.
Okay, so
detention,
they have
right.
a large detention
So
pit
they're-
in which all their storm drainage structures on their property have to be detained and released to the
And
sewer
probably
system.
any project
Any
of
large
that size would
development
have-
such, of that size would have stormwater detention, yes.
That'd be the same thing for focused development at Ridge and Clark.
Yes,
Well, they
I would have it as well.
They would have to have it, yeah.
Mr. Lyons?
And I just wanted to have one clarification. You'd used the term sewerage or sewage. Now, the only thing that is, to be clear, going into the sump pump originally is water that has fallen or, has come off of the house and went straight to the foundation and underneath and back up. So there should be no sewage involved in this whole discussion. It is just what groundwater that has gone around that foundation is now being pumped back out again.
That's correct. It's clear water, clear stormwater that gets pumped out of a sump pump. Sump pump,
Not washing machine water?
no, washing machine water should not. Washing machine water should go into your combined sewer system, into your sanitary sewer. So a sump pump, you should have an opening in the floor with a pump in it that's piped and goes to your sewer service. Your laundry discharges to that same one right now, but if you were to do it with just a sump pump, the discharge piping of the sump pump would come up and then go out through the wall and splash onto the lawn, and the only thing that it is pumping is groundwater that entered the basement through footing tiles or through cracks in your basement floor. It would not include laundry or sewage in any way, shape, or form.
So when we hear our sump pump working, and it's not raining out, right? What does that mean?
Evanston was a former swampy area. There is groundwater in a lot of places all the time, and it just means that. And I'm familiar with your house. There are newer houses have to have overhead sewers, which then they have a grinder pump, let's call it that, because it's grinding everything up and lifting it and sending it out your sewer service to the combined sewer. And that would run all the time because that's the idea of it, and because it's overhead sewers, you never have the issue of a basement backup from the combined sewer being overwhelmed. Some pumps do just discharge all the time, whether it's raining or not raining, and that is a common occurrence. They run almost all the time when it does rain, though. And that's what we're already putting a lot of stormwater into the combined sewer system, and then when you kick on sump pumps, you're putting more water under pressure and potentially causing a backup. I'm familiar of a location of a sump pump that discharges with such high pressure it blows the manhole cover off at the street level. They discharge with such force. So it is a serious problem, in my opinion, if we keep doing this and we allow more sump pumps than what are currently there to connect to the combined sewer system.
And this policy that we've been applying for the permitting has been in place for 10 years?
10-plus years. That's what the plan examiner has told me.
Right.
He's always interpreted the combined sewer to be a sanitary sewer because he's fully aware of the undersize of the pipe. He sits on the committee of people that review concerns coming with sump pump discharges to the lawn. So he's fully aware of that.
That explains my house. The previous owner put an addition onto the back and sunk a new sump pump pit, and that discharges underneath the deck in our yard, and they disconnected then the original sump pump under the old house. So we can hear the water trickling out during rain events, and it continues after the rain stops. But and we haven't had a continuing problem with seepage back to the house or with the neighbors. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Stoneback.
Thank
Any
you.
other communications or business for the committee? Is there a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, ladies.
More than we ever want to know about water.
Next meeting is Planning Development, which will convene at 7:15 this evening. Thank you.
A little more modern. His last Broadway musical was called Juno, and there's a gorgeous song from it called I Wish It's So. Rosemary Clooney did it with Nelson Riddle. She knew and loved Wittstein. But the harmonies, it's very Irish. It's very different from his other stuff. I'll just play a little bit of it.